This week's podcast is brought to you by Avast, a global leader in digital security and family safety solutions for network operators and their customers. We live in a truly digital world. Today's consumers don't care whether they're connected on their home Wi-Fi, at the mall, or on the beach. They expect their providers to protect their online lives at all times. Avast has over 15 years of experience delivering award-winning security solutions to network operators around the world. With over 435 million users globally, their advanced AI security leverages threat data from the world's largest consumer threat detection network. AI-based security is deployed at the device, router, and 5G edge network to provide a comprehensive and fully converged solution for all devices. Consumers enjoy peace of mind wherever they go and however they connect. Work with Avast to enable a simple, single solution to the complex, connected world of tomorrow. Learn more at avast.com/partners. That's avast.com/partners. Welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. This is Phil Harvey. I'm an editor here at Light Reading, and joining me on the podcast today is Colt Technology Services' new CEO, Keri Gilder. She is going to talk about Colt's opportunities in 5G, its SDWAN business, and other opportunities that she sees for the companies now that she's been appointed CEO. She's been at the company 18 months. Before joining Colt, she was the vice president in charge of Ciena's Europe, Middle East, and Africa business. So she's been in the carrier space or the telecom space for a bit. And she certainly has some ideas on how Colt will continue to expand and also take advantage of its assets and physical infrastructure in many European markets. So you'll hear all of that and much, much more coming up right after the break. Welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. This is Phil Harvey, and I'm joined today by Keri Gilder, the new CEO of Colt Technology Services. Keri, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And congratulations on the promotion. You've been at Colt now 18 months?
That's correct.
So this is a very quick ascension. You were the chief commercial officer, and now suddenly you're running the whole thing.
Yes, it was a pretty quick ascension. I think what we were able to do was build a strategy. Carl, myself, the leadership team came together very quickly when I hired on 18 months ago as the CCO. We were able to drive the strategy around the high bandwidth solutions that we had and expand into some newer markets like the hyperscale markets and double click, or what I call double down, on markets like Market Prism and our capital markets. So I think what I was able to do is show some progression pretty quickly around the business, drive into some new markets, and that enabled some success for us over the last 6 months financially. So.
Well, let's talk about one market that our audience is interested in, because it's a growth market for just about everybody in the food chain, or at least it's changing the way they do what they do. So even though Colt's not going to be a mobile operator, what are the opportunities for Colt as it relates to 5G networks and people building out in 5G?
I think one of the leaders at AT&T once said that as the world becomes more wireless, it actually becomes more wired. And that is the opportunity. That is the opportunity for Colt. Our asset in the metros is quite dense, and so as 5G and even the emerging solutions that will be adjacent to 5G, like smart city applications and edge computing rollouts, there's going to be a significant need for more fiber densification and driving to those small cells or those edge data centers. And so the play for us is really further densification and driving our metro asset into the 5G operators and helping them to expand their networks as they roll out small cells.
It's interesting. In my head, I was thinking, okay, 5G is definitely going to, like you said, drive enterprise for sure, but also, any hall type applications. It didn't occur to me that smart cities, but yeah, smart cities are going to be such an area where densification is really going to win. I guess that bodes well for Colt, especially in London and other metro markets where it when those small cells are put in, your facilities are very, very close by.
They are, and if you look at just street furniture alone, that's where small cells will go. They'll go into street furniture, the light posts, etc., that are down the streets, and we have fiber across many of the streets within the major metros within Europe and Asia.
Mm-hmm. So another big area that Colt has been pretty innovative in is SD-WAN. But it's also one of those markets where literally every service provider, every vendor, and probably a whole category of companies I'm forgetting has an SD-WAN product or version of it out. The market's quite saturated, at least in theory. What's the thing that Colt brings to the market that gives it some sort of edge in that space?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is that Colt was the first operator to provide a managed SD-WAN service overlay across Europe in particular, and that was in January of 2017. Our project started back in May 2016, so SD-WAN is not a new product for us. It's actually, many years old. And what that gives us an advantage on is innovation. So as the new VNFs comes out, as universal CPE starts coming to the forefront, we again are one of the first that are testing that are building the solutions around that, and we're enabling a full suite of enterprise products, whether they be voice or data, in order to go and drive the ultimate digital journey and solution for the customer. So, two of the things we rolled out recently are VoIP optimization, and this allows businesses to optimize their network and their voice infrastructure for, very good virtual meeting experiences, just like this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then, we rolled out dual IP version 4 and IP version 6. And again, that allows our customers to have a stack that supports a flexible design for their WANs with IP version 4 today and future proofing for IP version 6 in the future. So, we are continually innovating on what this looks like. And I think if you look at the cloud, for example, what we're offering is true on demand. And I think there's two aspects. One is on demand from a bandwidth perspective, where you can turn bandwidth up and down with literally the touch of a button. Mm-hmm. And you can buy that for an hour, or you can buy it for days, depending on what your requirements are. And I think we're one of the first ones that have really enabled that level of flexibility, and it's very cloud-like. So when we look at working with some of our partners and data center vendors and the cloud providers, the hyperscalers, this is really coming to the forefront when you're looking at cloud migrations from on-prem to the cloud.
Okay, it is the like you said, the maturity of the product set is definitely working in your favor, but the world is slightly different now. Does the way that you address the market with that product change now that so many people are working remotely, and indications are that entire teams of people in some companies are going to stay remote, and that's definitely going to that seems like it's going to change, but I'm not smart enough to know how that changes on the operator side.
I think it does. I think what it changes is just that access point. Where is the access point now? Where that bandwidth resides, and where does it shift? And what we saw was a shift to the internet service providers, the ISPs, and to the CDN networks, once we moved into a virtual environment. And so, you may not need as much bandwidth to the tall, shiny building in the metro, but you will still need it, to the data center and to the service provider. And the good news is Colt is in a position where we can provide all of that or any of that, depending on what you need. I do think it will change. We did a survey with our employees recently, and it was a resounding more than a third actually wanted to stay in a full work from home environment. So, and I think you have the likes of Twitter who are saying, yes, we're going to move to a full work from home environment. Whether that's reality or not, we don't know. But I do think that the mobility of the user and where the enterprise customer is now is going to change.
Yeah. Well, Twitter's based in South of Market in San Francisco. So I would speculate there, even though they're saying they work from home, I think there are people that are still stuck in traffic from before the pandemic. Actually, they're still in their car. They're like, I know I'm late. I'm going to get there eventually. But so maybe it takes us a few months to be able to tell in their specific case. I lived and worked in that area for a little while, and I don't really miss it. It's quite a lot of people trying to get into that city. But anyway, back to that reality. In Colt's case specifically, is that changing your workforce, or are you all about to become more distributed in that way because folks are deciding they can work from home more often or maybe all the time?
I mean, one of the things we're definitely looking at is our flexibility around working, ways of working, where you work, when you work. I think that is all going to go. It is going to change. It already has changed. And what we found is that when we were able to move quickly, within 48 hours, we almost had our entire workforce working from home. And when we did that, of course, there's a bit of fear that productivity is going to go down. But what we actually saw was the exact opposite. We saw an increase in productivity. And whether that was because people are no longer commuting, they're possibly getting more sleep than they were before because of that, or because the reality was, we are seen as critical infrastructure, and we had a job to do. We needed to secure the environment for the healthcare centers, the hospitals, the grocery stores, the banks, for all of those critical elements of society to keep it going. We had to move quickly. And so we had to move our employee base quickly. And then that we had this ultimate goal to make sure that, society continued to communicate. And so what we're looking at now is what's best for our employee base to make that, that continue.
Okay. Let's talk about expansion. That's always because we've traditionally known Colt as a pan-European operator, and recently Colt's expanded into the U.S. Do you continue to make further inroads into the U.S. and into North America generally, or what's sort of guiding your expansion outside of Europe?
So we expanded in the United States in 2018, and that was really driven by our customer base. One, we wanted to create a true global connectivity backbone, for the enterprise. The enterprise is our ultimate customer, and we wanted to enable that, extension between Europe and Asia to include, some transit connectivity within the U.S. So we did that expansion. And since then, what we've done is really looked at it from a market perspective. So we will go where our customers need us. Will we be proactive about expanding and have a build it and they will come kind of scenario? That's not part of our philosophy going forward. We definitely have some virtual reality and some AI and a lot of fancy tools that are telling us where to build, but the reality is it comes down to our customers.
Okay. That's as good an answer as any. You follow wherever your customers tell you to go. So this is uh, we started to get into this a little bit earlier, but what changes for you between your job as chief commercial officer and your job as CEO? And then, how does, because in one role you're sort of focused on uh, delivering and sort of producing commercially. On the other role, as somebody on my team said, now you have to answer to everyone for everything. so so
Yeah.
I'm curious how you're sort of managing that transition.
Well, first of all, I do a lot of meditation and yoga, so that helps.
Good idea. Yeah.
That helps first and foremost. But what I would say is the big difference between the two roles, like you said, one's very functional, and you're in you are, even at the higher levels, you're still in quite a bit of detail around that particular function. In the CEO job, I actually have the opportunity to think broader across the organization, to think about how we can drive a strategy, for the next 3 to 5 years, and work across the teams in an extremely collaborative manner in order to make that happen. But right now it's interesting times. I said it's always exciting to become a CEO, but it's definitely interesting to become a CEO during a pandemic.
Yeah.
So first and foremost is the health and safety of our employees, and making sure that our employees and our suppliers, as they are going out into the field and turning up connectivity for our customers, that they are safe, and that as we do go into reentry into the workplace, that we create that environment for them to be, successful from a health and safety perspective going forward. So I think what it does is it just broadens your perspective, enables some more time to think, and it gives you a broader scope as far as driving your strategy forward.
Yeah, it's definitely you said timing. It's definitely an interesting time, because you're going to manage two really, I guess, monumental transitions. The transition back into, kind of whatever the new normal looks like, and then whatever's after that, kind of resetting expectations, and and maybe even changing the business to fit those expectations. So those are two pretty big agenda items. I didn't mean to stress you out. I'm just this is so. I have stupid questions for you, and I know you don't have time for this, but this is just what happens. It's a light reading interview. So what do you do? Are any relation to George Gilder? Do you have a secret newsletter project that we should know about?
I not that I know of, but
Okay.
maybe I should go and do some sort of heritage.com or something like that and find out if I'm related.
I wouldn't. Yeah, you could be, but I wouldn't recommend the newsletter bit. Publishing is a terrible business. Best advice for managing people, especially now, because that's I think something that CEOs are going to be judged on increasingly, as we work our way out of the effects of the pandemic.
I think there's two elements for the here and now that I think are extremely important. One is ensuring that you're considering the mental health of your employee. Mm-hmm. And because I think that it's critical, and as much of the world has been in isolation for now months, it becomes very difficult for a human being, because we're such social. We are such social beings. We like that 3D engagement versus this screen time that can be quite fatiguing at times. So, first and foremost, I think the mental health is something that all managers should be considering right now. And a part of that is ensuring that communications, and I'm not saying this because I'm now the CEO of Colt, I'm saying this because I truly believe that communication is a critical health factor in order to ensure that mental health going forward. And I think if you can concentrate on those two things, and provide both formal and informal ways of interacting with your teams during this time. Have a virtual drink session or have a virtual coffee chat. I think those a lot in this time, and just genuinely letting them know that you're thinking about them and caring about them is the thing. Going forward, and what I've always thought prior to pandemic is it's important to be open to diversity of thought and to be an active listener. I think as a manager, we like to talk a lot and we like to give our opinions, but really as a manager, your most important capability is to listen, and then to remember that your purpose at the end of the day is to serve them and to help them be successful. And if you can do that, then at the end of the day, you'll ultimately benefit from their success.
That sounds excellent. So something I saw on your LinkedIn page was that you mentioned that one of the things in your high school background was that you were either the mascot or you.
Oh my God!
What? And because it's in New Mexico, it's Carlsbad. I happen to come from a string of schools with terrible mascots, so this is very interesting to me. So, were you a mascot, and what was the school and the mascot name?
I was a mascot. Yes, I was for my high school, if you can believe that. Excellent. And it was terrible. It was terrible. I was the Carlsbad caveman. Carlsbad.
So you were a caveman.
I was a caveman.
This is awesome. This is better than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be like tigers or something. Oh, this is great. Well, so mine was in middle school here in North Texas. We were delay harvesters, and then it got even worse because we became Louisville Fighting Farmers. And
Fighting Farmers, excellent.
I don't know why anybody would want to be a fighting farmer. It just seems, I never think of farmers as the fighting type, but
no, I don't either. I think I'm quite gentle, actually, usually.
So hopefully you had like a big a proper costume.
I had a proper head. It was so hot. It was extremely hot. You're running around in a caveman suit with a proper caveman hat or a mask with big hair. Yeah, it's quite a picture. I hope one of those pictures never gets out. But no, yes,
probably not. But this is the level of research we can afford for some things, but not for others. I can't be bothered with muxing questions about optical fiber. But you get me going on high school mascots. I'm there for it.
Why not?
Okay, Keri Gilder, thanks very much for your time and insights today, and best of luck at Colt.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and hope everybody stays healthy and safe.
I want to thank Avast for sponsoring this week's podcast. Smart Life, a fully converged solution for digital security, is deployed at the device, router, and 5G edge network perimeter, enabling their award-winning security solutions to protect your customers' entire digital lives. Together, Avast and partners can build products and services people can trust and will keep coming back to. Let Avast help you build a safer digital world for your customers. Discover more at avast.com/partners. That's avast.com/partners. That is it. That's our show. Thanks very much to Colt CEO Keri Gilder for her time and insights today. Thanks to our producer, Tian Fu, because if it weren't for him, you wouldn't be hearing any of this. Thank you, dear listener, because if you weren't paying attention, we wouldn't be able to get away with doing all of this at work or at home or wherever we might be. Please do tell a friend to subscribe, and thank you very much for listening to the Light Reading Podcast.